Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We have been actually considering a very, very fascinating subject of Samskars and Vaasanas. And it's a unique thing to Adhyatma and parmartha, because we have seen that there is Panch kosha concept, annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vikekajnaanam, anandamaya. The common man would get a question, why? What is this need of panchakoshatmaka existence? Then it mentions about also shatchakras, as I have often referred to it, as set of samskars and vasanas, such as Muladhara Vasana, Swadhisthana Vasana, Manipuraka Vasana, Anahata Vasana, Vishuddhi Vasana, Agnya Vasana. So is the case of samskars. And we commonly believe, perhaps all Indians, that we have this rebirth, concept of rebirth. And Adhyatma tells us that rebirth is not that we merely reappear as human beings, life after life after life, and lives after lives after lives. But we can transmigrate to 8.4 million yonis. Jiva yonis means class of life. So there are 8.4 million classes of life. That means we can transmigrate to botanical world, we can transmigrate to world of insects and worms and animals and cattle and birds, and we can transmigrate to life forms which are infernal life forms to celestial life forms. So it's a fabulous concept. It's not just that we are born with tendencies, and not that only human beings have human tendencies. We have all kinds of tendencies, and they are housed in fabulous manomaya kosha. So potentially we have been and we were all forms of worms and insects and birds and animals and cattle and beasts, and even botanical life and even life of the other planes, infernal planes, atala, vitala, sulla, sutala, talatala, rasatala, mahatala, patala, sapta adholokas and sapta urdhvalokas, such as bhuvaha, suvaha, maha, janaha, tapaha, satya. And the way these are various planes which we will come across when we consider the bhuvanam, which is coming at a later part of the Vibhuti Pada. So there are so many planes of creation, and we are not only terrestrial beings. Although we are terrestrial beings today, potentially we are beings of every plane of creation, and we have been beings of all the planes. So that's a marvelous concept. Samskars and Vasanas. We have 8.4 million Jivarashi Vasanas. We were bugs and we have potentials to become bugs. We were mosquitoes and we have potentials to become mosquitoes. We were snakes and cobras and we have potentials to become snakes and cobras. The Karma Siddhanta postulates all these things, and Yoga Shastra is the science which has great depth in describing the samskars and vasanas. So it's going to be a fabulous topic, and already it has been a fabulous topic. But today we are trying to look at that particular dialogue which took place between Jaigishavya and Adhyatma, two great sagely beings. And Vyasa has quoted Bhagwan Jaigishavya, that is Jaigishavya Acharya, divulging about this eternal journey of life through the Sargas and Mahasargas. And he is talking to Adhyatma, a disciple, about this. And Vyasa has quoted this dialogue. This is something that appears in Sri Vishnu Puranam, and Vyasa has quoted. So today we are going to commence to understand this, a dialogue which is going to open out a kind of inquiry into the Panchakoshas and the manomaya kosha and the fabulous samskara cortex within us, within all the beings. So Jaigishavya, having had revelation of the existence of life, which is beginningless, and that it exists in various forms, as I said, 8.4 yonis. So therefore he had that direct intuitive vision of this reality. While our case is that we don't even have slightest clue about our past and immediately preceding life. But Jaigishavya through Samadhi pragnya, had this intuitive mystic revelation, and that's why he is speaking about it, which is absolutely vital and important for us. So he commences, Atram idam akyanam shruyate. Vyasa is here trying to describe the dialogue which took place between Jaigishavya and Adhyatma. So it begins like this. Bhagwan Jaigishavyasya samskara sakshatkaranat dashasu mahasargeshu janma parinama kramam anupashyato Vikekajnaanam pradurbhutaha. So Jaigishavya, out of the samyama that is being mentioned now, samskara sakshatkaranat purvajati jnanam, he had this samyama, and then therefore he had some revelations. And Jaigishavya had the memory or revelation of great 10 cycles. And there were innumerable births for Jaigishavya in 10 Mahasargas. And because of that, the knowledge of the past lives for all those 10 great cycles, he attained Vikekajnaanam. So, what are these 10 Mahasargas? One Mahasarga spans what is called as Kalpa. It spans to 8.64 billion years. And such 10 Mahasargas means into 10. That is 80 billion 640 million years of history of Jaigishavya himself. So he had the clear knowledge as to how he traveled life after life after life after life, and sarga after sarga after sarga after sarga, that is kalpa after kalpa after kalpa after kalpa. And that was his history of 84 billion and 640 million years. And that, wow, preview, that review gave him Vikekajnaanam. Now therefore the validity of his knowledge is also presented here. So what does he say? Atha Bhagavana avatya tanudharaha tam uvacha. And in those, having traveled in all those cycles, and then he got Vikekajnaanam, Vikekakhyati, and got liberated. However, to pass on this wisdom that he had, he attained a fabricated body, Divya Dehadhari. He was Divya Dehadhari, that is not born out of some parents by biological process, but by Svecha, by his own will. He created his own embodiment. And Avatya questioned Jaigishavyacharya. Dashasu Mahasargeshu bhavyatvat anabhibhuta buddhi sattvena tvaya naraka tiryaka garbha sambhavam dukham sampashyata deva manusheshu punah punah utpadyamanena Sukha-Dukha kim adhikam upalabdham iti. So, like we speak about, some very experiential person, then we enjoy company with a very experienced person who perhaps has lived a long life of 80, 90, 100 and 100 plus years. We are interested to know the history. It is fascinating to be in company with such a person whom we say very experienced person. Now here Jaigishavya was experienced person, and what was the span of his experience? 10 Mahakalpas. That is, as I said just now, 84 billion and 640 million years. So, how much wisdom can be gotten from a person who has such a long experience? So he was put a question that you appeared and reappeared umpteen number of times. Imagine how many births can take place in 84 billion and 640 million years, if on an average human lifespan is considered to be 100 years. So you can compute how many incarnations he must have had. So Avatya puts him a question. Since you have been existing for 10 Mahasargas, and then when you got the revelation by being free from Rajatama gunas, by Bodhisattva, you can remember all your journeys in Naraka Tiryaka yonis and Garbha, that is terrestrial plane, and even celestial plane. You have appeared in Deva Manushya form, Pashu, Pakshi, Deva Manushya form, umpteen number of times. Where did you find greatest amount of Sukha-Dukha? So we want to know where is the more Sukha and more Dukha which we cannot experience about being human beings. Being human beings, we have no idea what can be the magnitude of Sukha and Dukha possible in this universe when we take birth in various life forms. Because we have taken birth in all the forms, and we will be taking birth in all the forms, which are said to be 8.4 million life forms. So he is curious about having a map of Sukha-Dukhas, having a map of pains and pleasures, delights and sorrows in all the various life forms, and no one would be able to give answer to this except someone like Jaigishavya, who remembers all his 10 Kalpa manifestations. So the question is obviously, where did you experience greatest amount of delight? Where was and when was the greatest amount of delight which we mortals cannot even imagine perhaps? So, Bhagvantam avatyam Jaigishavya uvacha. So Jaigishavya says, Dashasu Mahasargeshu bhavyatvat anabhibhuta buddhi satvena maya narakatiryaka bhavam punha bhavam dukkham sampashyata deva manusheshu punah punah utpadyamanena yatkinchit anubhutam tat sarvam dukkham eva pratyevaimi. He says, you are asking me about greatest pleasures of life, not only as human beings but in other planes. You are asking me a question about the delights. You want my delight map. But let me tell you, after having gotten my Sattva-purusha Anyata Khyati, Viveka Khyati, then I realized that all that I experienced, maybe at that time it was pleasure, but now I realize, now I know that all that was dukkham. Even sukham was dukkham. Even pleasure was a pain. Even delight was a sorrow. So, he is going to describe, or he described, the pains and pleasures of all the various 8.4 yonis which are available in the various planes of creation. So, Rajatama Gunas gave him experience of pains and pleasure. But once he got freed from Rajatama Gunas, then with Sattva Guna exalted, he had real scan of all those experiences, and he declares, therefore, actually they were all sorrows. Tat sarvam dukkham eva pratyayvaimi. Even the celestial pleasures are pains and sorrows. Then Bhagwan Avatya questions him, Yadidam ayushmadha pradhana vashitvam anuttamam cha sukham santosha sukham kim idam api dukkha pakshe nikshiptam. He says, we have read about all those great siddhis, the great glories, up to pradhana vashitvam, the conquest of the primordial matter, and these are all said to be glories and attainments. Chiranjivitvam, that is immortality, and such things. So also santoshat anuttama sukhalabha, kind of anuttama sukha, unparalleled delight and happiness, they are all spoken of. Are they all of the class of dukkham? Do you mean to say that they are all dukkham? So many glories of yogis, there are so many siddhis which we will be seeing, and we are already commenced to see those. So many siddhis, and ultimately pradhana jaya, that's the greatest of siddhi, supreme siddhi, which is conquest of primordial matter. They should all be glories, and therefore they should all be delights. You can't say that the glory is without a delight. So they are superlative delights. So also Santosha Sukham, which is already spoken of. Now all that, is it all Dukkham? Do you mean to say all that gets classed as Dukha in your view? Because we have heard about two experiences, pains and pleasures, delights and sorrows, etc. Do you mean to say that they are all Dukkham only? What about the Santosha Sukham? So Jaigishavya smilingly answers, Vishaya Sukhapekshaye Vedam Anuttamam Santosha Sukham Uktam. Yes, Santosha is Sukham. Anuttama Sukham compared to Vaishayika Sukham. We only have experience of sensory pleasures. And we have heard about Divya pleasures. And compared to all those pleasures, even celestial pleasures, heavenly pleasures, Santosha Sukham scores over all those. So compared to, or in the light of Vaishayika Sukham and celestial pleasures, Santosha scores over all, and therefore Patanjali mentions about Anuttama Sukha Labham. But Kaivalya Sukhapekshaya Dukkham Eva. But compared to Kaivalya Sukham, the Sukham of liberation, moksha, it is nothing but Dukkha. Buddhisatvasya ayam dharmaha trigunascha pratyayo heya pakshe nyasta iti dukkha rupa trishna tantuhu. So therefore, that which is infested by three gunas, sattva, rajatama gunas, we get all these various experiences which are either classed as pleasures or sorrows. But you should know that the gunas are heya paksha. They are all avoidable, and therefore, if they are avoidable, they are dukkha rupa. It is because of the trishna tantu. They all give rise to thirst. The more you have delights, more you have thirst for gratification. And that's why all those are sorrows. And compared to moksha sukham, or what Vedanta calls as bhuma sukham, all those are not inferior pleasures and delights and happinesses, but they are actually all sorrows. So Jaigishavya divulges in that dialogue the various kinds of delights which come in the way of the jiva, which transmigrates to various planes. But compared to Kaivalya Sukham, which is actually only the Sukham, it is not the superlative delight, but that is only delight, and rest all is actually not delight. We think it is delight, but they are not delights. Anyway, the point is, we contain samskaras and vasanas of 8.4 million yonis, life forms. They are all housed in our embodiment. And that is why esoteric anatomy speaks about shatchakras and Koshas. We have been all those infernal lives, we all have been the terrestrial insects and worms and cattle and birds and whatever life form is available on the planet. We all have had the experience of all that, therefore we have samskars of all those. We have botanical vasanas. Human beings have botanical vasanas. Human beings have infernal beings, being vasanas, and human beings have celestial being vasanas. And in human form, they are all there. And that is why Adhyatma speaks about manomaya kosha and the whole Panch kosha. There are annamaya vasanas, pranamaya vasanas, manomaya vasanas. In the three koshas we have vasanas, therefore they are called vasana kosha. It is only vijnanamaya and anandamaya which are transcendent. So not that all the five koshas are samskar infested, but the first three are samskar and vasana infested. Annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya. And then we have vijnanamaya kosha which is transcendent, and anandamaya kosha which is supreme. And that is why there is mention of pancha koshas. So manomaya kosha is really containing the molds of all life forms, and the life is cast in various life forms. As we transmigrate, after our death in this life, we can transmigrate to subhuman planes, we can transmigrate to superhuman planes, because all those molds are retained in manomaya kosha. Manomaya kosha is a marvel. So again I request you to go back to that delineation of pancha koshas which we had. So manomaya kosha, the fabulous vasana kosha, will be divulged and will be revealed. So also pranamaya kosha is vasana kosha, annamaya kosha is vasana kosha, annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya are vasana kosha, vijnanamaya and anandamaya are free from vasanas. So that is why esoteric anatomy speaks about pancha koshas. Now, as human beings, we are with shatchakras, and the shatchakras are loci for various kinds of vasanas. And for benefit of all of you, I am going to repeat, or rather delineate with greater details than perhaps what we did earlier. So there are the shatchakras called Muladhara, Chakra Swadhisthana, Chakra Manipuraka, Chakra Anahata Chakra, Vishuddhi Chakra, Agnya Chakra. And these chakras house various kinds of samskaras and vasanas. And that's why the Indian psychology that you get in Yoga Shastra stands out amongst all the psychological studies that the world ever had up to our times. So since we have been in all life forms, the 8.4 million life forms, Jiva Yoni, Upamanava Yoni, Manava Yoni and Urdhva Manava Yoni, that is human form and subhuman form and superhuman form of lives, we have certain vasanas within us, and they become Muladhara vasanas. The moment we are in life form, we have a certain set of vasanas. That's why very aptly they are called Muladhara, basic supportive chakra. How does it support? It's supported by vasanas and samskars, and therefore it is called Muladhara chakra. So let me tell you what are these Muladhara vasanas which are common to all life forms, be that biological life form or botanical life form. Jiva Jantu, that and then insects and worms, ants, etc., the subtlest life forms that we have identified, to microscopic life forms that we have identified, and to all the life forms onwards we have Muladhara Rupa vasanas. So what are these vasanas? They are called ahara, bhaya, nidra, maithunam. So at the instance of Samadhi, listeners, I am going to delineate, as it is very appropriate at this point in time when we are dealing with samskar sakshatkar. What is this locus of samskar for dharana, dhyan, samadhi or samyama? So Muladhara vasana, those are ahara, bhaya, nidra, maithunam, common to all life forms, whether they are terrestrial life forms or celestial life forms, whether they are biological life forms or botanical life forms or superhuman life forms. These vasanas stand common. So ahara means tendencies and vasanas with regards to food. And there are different foods for different life forms. We all know what is human food, but we also know the food of cattle, which we call as fodder. Today we are also aware of dog food, because we get in market the dog food packets. So every life form has something as food. And it not only needs food for its existence, but there is a tendency for food. There is asana, the ahara vasana. And most of the life forms, subhuman life forms particularly, they are all the time food hunting life forms. Human being is not necessarily all the time food hunting. Human being will be hunting for so many things. But there are certain life forms, very subhuman, which have no other purpose in life but to go food hunting. So it is so strong. That's why you have certain animals as predator animals and certain animals are prey animals. Because it's such a strong vasana that you can't help being a predator. And therefore there is a prey class of animals. And they are all just going after food. The moment they come to a wakeful state, they are in search of food. They go after food hunting. And interestingly, one of the mystic saint here comments on fish eaters, because most of the human beings are fish eaters. Now, it is said that as you eat, so are your vasanas. What you eat creates corresponding vasanas in you. And about the fish eaters, a mystic saint of our times, he has said the following. He says the fish has a unique tendency for food. It is so indiscreet about food. You drop anything in water, it gobbles. It comes to surface and gobbles it. You put anything. It might be edible thing or non-edible thing. It can be eatable or non-eatable, but it surfaces and gulps the food. And perhaps it will later throw it out, say, knowing that it is not food. But it has its habit of gobbling all that comes its way. So those who are fish eaters become indiscreet, because they develop fish tendencies in it, because they eat the fish. So if you eat the fish, you become fish-like. So if you become fish-like, this is what is going to happen. Its annavasana is enormously great, that it has no discretion at all. You just put something into the water body, the fish from anywhere will just come to surface and gobble it and go away. So those who are fish eaters, the mystic saint says that we are eating annavasana. So that is one of the basic tendencies, which is ahara, the food. And some people, even some human beings, they have greatest priority for food. The morning they get up, they think about what to eat today. What should I eat today? What will I get today? What should I be getting? What will I be getting? They just have their major thought process on food as to what will I eat. Some human beings have very, very strong annavasana, while some of them don't. And some of them even forget food. You have heard about it, you have perhaps experienced about it, that sometimes someone forgets about food. But not that he lives without food, the vasana comes up. But the vasana is not so strong that all the time that the person will be contemplating on food, what to eat, what to get, what will I get, how should I procure. Because on awakening, some people think about what will I eat today. That's the first thing that comes to their thought. This is not the case of all human beings. That is the annavasana, very strong for some people. Their major purushartha is to just be tasting various cuisines, appreciating various cuisines, eating various cuisines, eating varieties of foods, or eating particular foods so voluptuously that they cannot not think about food in their awakeful state. Even if they are going outstation, their first inquiry is, what will I get there? Where are the eateries? Where will I go and eat? What will I get to eat? If you go to a foreign place where we are never ever gone, you first inquire about food. Will I get what I eat, or what will I get there? So munching is their habit. That's the first and foremost thing, is to be munching and to be thinking about munching. That is the ahara vasana which is there in more or less degree in all the beings. No one is free from ahara vasana. Be that Vasishtha Yajnavalkya, be that Dhaneshwar Tukaram. The annavasana is there, but then it is in least and meager degree. That is not having any priority. They will eat when they are hungry, and they will eat all that will come their way, which is not based on their likes and dislikes. And therefore they mention, as there is a vernacular expression in Marathi, Udara bharana nohe janize yagna karma. Eating food is a yagna. They do eat food. Everyone eats food. But annavasana is very weak. But that doesn't mean that they do not have annavasana at all. Anyway, so annavasana of someone like the demon that you perhaps have read about and heard about in Mahabharatam called Bakasura. You know the story perhaps of Bhima and Bakasura. Bakasura had enormous food tendency. As against Bakasura, take any saintly person, sadhu, purusha, any santa, saint, gnani, bhakta, sannyasta, rishi, muni, yogi. They have food tendency. They do offer the food into Vaishwanara Agni, but that is only to offer as an oblation. It is swaha. While we mortals have voluptuousness for food. Anyway, the food is of variegated kinds. As you get dog's food packet, you don't get human food packet. There are enormous cuisines available for human beings. Varieties of food are absolutely infinite. They reach infinitude. So, we have typical tendency for food as human beings. We have likes and dislikes about food. We have infatuations and delusions about certain foods. And that's the proof for ahara vasana. And human food tendency is unique. Say for example, cattle, buffaloes, bulls, cows. No, they just eat green grass sumptuously, and once they eat, they turn their backs and go away. They do not think of carrying some green grass for the morrow. Like human beings are used to this carry back culture. We will try to carry the food for tomorrow. If you are given a delicacy in the morning, you ask for the same delicacy in some container so that you can go back home, and what is called as food parcel. You take food parcel, go back home and eat it again in the evening, and maybe you will eat day after as well. So we think about tomorrow's food. Animals don't think about tomorrow. They will eat there and then sufficiently, and they will walk away. While the human beings don't walk away, they carry. So that's the unique ahara vasana in human beings as compared to all other animals. Once their belly is full, they will just turn their backs and walk away. They will not think of carrying something and storing in refrigerators for tomorrow. Have you seen any beast carrying some flesh, left out flesh after having eaten? Do you see them carrying back so that it can be kept in refrigerator for tomorrow? They will again go for hunting on the next day. That's the ahara vasana, unique in human beings. The second of the Muladhara vasana is nidra. And let us try to understand this second very basic tendency of all life forms, that is nidra, which is also Muladhara vasana, but we will look at it in our next session. Enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.